And let me go straight to Washington, D.C., from where Sajeeb Wazed, former Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's son, is joining me live. Sajeeb, appreciate your time here on India Today. The verdict sentences your mother to death based on charges of crimes against humanity. Specifically, it says that this is for incitement, ordering lethal force, which is including drones and helicopters, and failure to prevent mass murder during the 2024 student uprising. You have called this verdict a sham. Why?
Look, first of all, it's being conducted by a government itself that is unelected, unconstitutional, and completely illegal. Secondly, in order to have my mother's trial in an expedited fashion, they amended the laws to enable that. And you cannot amend laws without parliament, and there is no parliament. Then they did not allow my mother to send her own lawyers. Her lawyers were barred from the courts. Instead, the court itself appointed a lawyer. The judges on that court, the existing judges, were forced to resign, and new judges with no experience and who are completely partisan were appointed. And then this entire process was rushed through in just a matter of 100, 140 days. That is unprecedented. So this thing has been a complete sham from the beginning. The verdict was preordained. And so it's completely illegal. It's a completely fake verdict.
But the chief advisor here, that Muhammad Yunus, has stated that the verdict affirms the principle that no one, regardless of power, is above the law. So political disagreements aside, when you say it's illegal, what is the route forward for the former prime minister?
Well, you see, on the issue of justice, they have tried my mother and our government leaders. They've kept 100 members of parliament behind bars for the last 1.5 years without bail, and no trials, no investigations. But at the same time, there were hundreds of police officers that were killed. There were hundreds of our party activists that were killed. And this Yunus regime, notice he's not a prime minister. He's just an advisor, which is an illegal post. They have actually passed a law, again, without parliament, which provides immunity, indemnity for the killings of all the police officers and all our party activists. So the question of justice here, again, is a joke. How can you have justice only for one side of people that were killed, but no justice for the other side at all? That is not justice.
How can you then reconcile your mother's assertion that she is being singled out for political reasons with the fact that the charges relate to the deaths of civilians, an event that directly led to the collapse of her government?
Look, all of those deaths were regrettable. The clips that they showed about the ordering of lethal force was just a small portion. They didn't show the full clip. We have made it available on our web pages, on my own Facebook page, and on Twitter, where in the same conversation, she is talking about the safety of protesters. She is talking about arresting violent protesters and using lethal force only if necessary. That is standard operating procedure when you have violent protests anywhere around the world. She never ordered the police to shoot at anyone directly. She never ordered the police to kill protesters. She wanted them arrested and lethal force to be used only if absolutely necessary. All the deaths are regrettable, but again, many policemen were killed as well. Hundreds of policemen were killed. Hundreds of our party activists were killed. How can you justify giving immunity for all of those killings? There's no investigation at all. There's no arrests, no trials, nothing, only trials for one side. So that is why this is completely politically motivated. This is revenge. This is not justice.
Okay, you say that this is revenge. Sheikh Hasina, your mother, is the was the longest serving prime minister in the history of Bangladesh. And today she has been sentenced for what is being seen as crimes against humanity. What does it mean for her politically? Because you are her son, you would be able to put this in context better. You would have spoken to your mother. And what does it mean for the party, Awami League?
It really means nothing. This verdict is illegal. Right now, unfortunately, under this illegal regime, there is no rule of law in Bangladesh. The courts are just rubber stamping everything. So right now, nothing. But once the rule of law returns, this verdict will not be sustainable. There are so many legal flaws with the entire process that it will completely fall apart on appeal and completely get dismissed. So for my mother, she is safe. The verdict itself is a joke because there is nothing they can do to my mother. And once democracy is returned and the rule of law is returned, it will all get thrown out. The Awami League is the largest and oldest political party in Bangladesh. This is why they have banned the Awami League from elections as well. They banned the largest political party in the country from elections, which they are planning to hold in February. Again, that is a sham election because they know that the Awami League will win a huge number of seats. Awami League will either be the largest opposition or the Awami League might win the elections outright. And in that case, all of this will get nullified. That is why they need to have a sham election after this in order to continue this, because without that, this will not be sustainable.
So when you say that rule of law will return, how will the rule of law return if you say that the elections which will be held in the month of February next year will also be a sham election and an election in which you have not been allowed to participate as a political party?
That is the main question. If these elections are allowed to go ahead, then Bangladesh becomes another failed state with the Awami League constantly protesting. It will turn into violence, and it will be an unstable country. And eventually, whichever government is brought in will fail because by having a sham election, a government is just not sustainable. The people will be out on the streets protesting against it. So right now, our goal is to stop the elections, these one-sided sham elections. We are not going to allow them to go ahead.
So how do you stop an election? Because the interim government there, that is of Chief Adviser Muhammad Yunus, is looking at an election. They have a cabinet in place which is justifying this verdict. They are saying that this is essentially some kind of a victory or historic one. What next then? If you say that there has to be a rule of law will not be imposed according to you if there are elections which are sham in nature, then how do you stop elections?
By protesting. So we've already had protests. We have shut down the city. We have shut down the country. And the public responded. We called for shutdowns and the public stayed home. Schools, colleges, stores, they were shut down voluntarily. We will escalate these programs. You will see much bigger protests. And if the government cracks down, then it's going to lead to violence. And so what you're going to see heading up to the election in Bangladesh is probably a lot of violence.
You are essentially warning of violence. You're unfortunately warning of violence.
Yes, I am warning of it. That is exactly what's going to happen. Because we cannot allow this to happen, because you cannot leave out half the country from voting, they are going to come out on the streets.
But how will this chaos really be in the interest of the people of Bangladesh?
Well, it would be to stop an election so we can have a free, fair, and inclusive election, because without that, there is no rule of law in Bangladesh.
Or can you challenge that whatever is happening in Bangladesh outside? Are you looking for support from other countries? And have you got support from other countries? Is Sheikh Hasina, the former Prime Minister, whose political career has witnessed multiple challenges, she has faced multiple allegations in her long career, is she getting support from other nations?
She is getting support, but regardless of her personal support, They've run a really good, if you call it media campaign against her. But regardless of that, right now what you have in Bangladesh, this regime is backed by Jamaat-e-Islami and the Islamist parties. They wanted to amend the constitution and turn Bangladesh into an Islamic republic. Unfortunately, too many people opposed it. They weren't able to do that. Foreign countries are very, very concerned about this issue. They have let terrorists out of prison. Most of the terrorists that our government convicted, they have released. They're now running free. The recent bomb attack in Delhi was traced back to links of Lakhar-e-Taiba's branch in Bangladesh. And so the whole world is now very, very concerned about it. And yes, the whole world is really intent now that these one-sided elections do not go ahead in Bangladesh. We are getting that support from Western powers.
Sajeeb, you have warned that protests by Awami League supporters would intensify from now onwards. The charges against your mother include incitement of violence. Are you not concerned that your current calls for intensified protest and whatever it takes action against the interim government could be seen as continuing the very pattern of incitement for which your mother was convicted? What is then the limit of your party's political resistance?
We did not incite the violence last year. The violence was incited by the students. The law enforcement was responding. And unfortunately, they were confronted with violence. That's why police officers were killed. And when police officers are being killed, they end up responding with violence as well. So that is what happened. Our government did not incite any violence at all. Why would our government incite violence that could destabilize our own government? But this time we are not. We are being subjugated very harshly. Our party has been banned, and we are not a small, insignificant party. So when you try to subjugate half the population in that way, they are going to fight. And if that is our only option, then that is our only option. They're giving us no option.
How do you look at the Yunus government, which is using the language of 2013 treaty with India to argue that India is legally obligated to hand over the former prime minister, who is presently here?
Well, I say good luck with that, because in order for a treaty to be enforceable, the legalities have to be followed. First of all, the regime in Bangladesh is illegal. That alone nullifies any extradition treaty being enforced. Secondly, the trial process was done completely illegally. Again, amending laws without a parliament. The trial itself was not fair because she was not allowed witnesses. She was not allowed her own attorneys. So if you have such a sham trial and such an illegal process, India is actually legally bound not to follow it. Any legal treaty, any extradition treaty requires that due process has been followed in the trial in that country. So due process was not followed here in any way. And so India is actually legally obligated not to send her back.
Okay, my last question then, Sajeeb. How is the entire family and Awami League approaching this now? Are you looking at challenging it?
Under
legally?
The current environment in Bangladesh, we can't. We are challenging it internationally. We have filed cases at the International Criminal Court against the Yunus regime. We will pursue it there, because there they won't be able to manipulate the proceedings as they have been able to in Bangladesh. So ultimately, yes, we will win the legal case. In the short term, that is a concern with these elections. And that is something the Awami League people are very outraged. You've seen already some spontaneous acts of vandalism in Bangladesh. At this point, our people are outraged. We don't even have to instruct them for anything. We cannot stop them from whatever they might do. They are very, very angry. You've had 102 prominent journalists in Bangladesh write a letter that condemning these trials. You've had 100 prominent doctors write a letter. You've had 1,000 school teachers write a letter. You've had lawyers protesting outside the Supreme Court against this verdict. So people are outraged.
All right, Sajeeb Wazed, really appreciate your time. Sajeeb Wazed there, son of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, speaking to us from Washington, D.C. and sharing his views on the road ahead for his mother and also for Awami League.